We start with two Maseratis, and 3500 GT and a Khamsin. The Khamsin has a 4.9-liter V8 engine while the 3500 a 3.5-liter 6-in-line. A very nice design detail which later was used by the second generation Honda CRX, as far as I know it was called the SE in the States. The interior of the Khamsin, fully handmade back in the early 70s. This car, believe it or not, is a Fiat Dino. The name Dino honors Ferrari founder Enzo Ferrari's late son, Alfredo Dino Ferrari, credited with designing the V6 engine used in this, and other cars. This is an original Ford GT40, the 40 reflects the height of the car which is exactly 40 inches. The modern Ford GT does not carry the designation 40 anymore because it's a bit higher. As we all know, it was Henry Ford's answer to the domination of Ferrari in the Gran Turismo class, like the infamous Le Mans 24-hour race. After Henry Ford was turned down by Enzo Ferrari to buy Ferrari, he had to come up with something, and this was his answer. You're looking at a very rare Maserati Ghibli Spider, only 250 were ever made. It had an 4.7-liter 306 horsepower V8 engine which did 0 to 60 miles an hour in 6.8 seconds and reached a top speed of 250 kilometers per hour or 145 miles per hour. It's not all old stuff. This BMW 650 convertible is also very nice. Not in the same class as the old ones, but still a very desirable car. Another BMW, in this case a Z4 Coupe. It's not an M-Series, but nevertheless a very desirable car. Got pictures coming later on of other cars like that. This one you may not know when you're living in the States. It is the European version of the Mustang called the Capri. English people are all too familiar with it. It didn't have a big engine to start with, like 50 brake horsepower. At one time I vaguely remember there was a Ford Capri in the States as well. It was not the same thing, not in design nor performance. A Ferrari 328. Also a Dino because of the V6 engine. If it hadn't a V12 it was not considered a real Ferrari at the time. Why, this is a replica Ford GT40, look closely. The steering wheel is on the other side. There was never an original GT40 built for left traffic. You will find that in Australia, Japan, China, Brazil, England, and South Africa. Henry Ford, being his own person, was a very true American and never did build something like this. This one, on the other hand, is a very real GT40. Not based on a Pontiac Fiero. The engine is right, even the way the exhaust headers flow is how it was supposed to be. And then you come across one which has a Penske motor in it. Maybe the original car with another engine, but to me it's a bit suspicious. Well, I don't think anybody needs an introduction to this car. At the same time it's in Europe, which make it special in its own rights. Same goes for this Corvette. I can imagine when you're not old enough to know what this stands for, you need a lot more time researching the internet. No pun intended. And then, out of the blue, a red Lamborghini Murcielago. I hope you know about the story which took place between Enzo Ferrari and Ferruccio Lamborghini. If not, I tell you later. Just another Ferrari, with more than 500 presented. It's not easy to keep up which model this might be. The next one I do know. This is a Ferrari Enzo Ferrari. In its days one of the most expensive cars on the market. Selling new for 1.1 million euros, it was a tribute to Enzo Ferrari, founder of the brilliant brand of cars. It would have been the 60th anniversary of the brand, but Enzo didn't make it. He died at the age of 90 on August 14, 1988. The next car I stumbled upon was the Pagani Huayra. I did know the Pagani Zonda. But this was a totally different car. It has a Swiss license plate, which means it's driven on the roads. Now, more than 60% of the Swiss are millionaires, but this car is like a 4 million package. That makes Lamborghini and Ferrari look cheap, and in a way they are. Pagani didn't produce their own engine. Instead they souped up a 6-liter V12, bought from Mercedes, and did something Italian to it. Instead of doing 550 horsepower, this engine has about 700 horsepower. It's still a Mercedes engine, but they dressed it up with gold-plated valve covers, gold-plated heat shields, and many more exotic modifications. Just take a look at the suspension and the interior. The dash is out of another world. And what is that thing in the seats? Air conditioning, or can you relieve yourself in it when the speed gets too scary? If you know what it's for, leave your comments below. The rear view mirror is really something else. Look how it is shaped, and mind you, it's 100% made out of carbon fiber. Now, this is a Pagani Zonda. It's prepared for the circuit and some of the body parts are still off. I think this is a 250 GT, but I am not sure. The red nose on the left belongs to a Ferrari F40. The black car is a begin 70s Maserati Bora. Initially with an 4.7-liter V8, but later it had an 4.9-liter engine. A rare BMW M1. The street version had an 3.5-liter straight-six engine and was very exclusive for its time. Ferrari 550, a real Ferrari with a full-size V12 in the front. The Maserati MC12 was a limited production, two-seater sports car to allow a racing version to compete in the FIA GT Championship. In 2004, 25 cars were produced. Another 25 the next year. Only 50 cars were built to use on the roads. After that 12 cars were produced for racing. That makes 62 cars in total, after which the production stopped. Some vintage Formula One cars are present as well. Cosworth is an English engine tuner which basically only did Ford engines. Later they did some work for other brands as well. The Ferrari FF, capable of a speed of 205 miles per hour. The Ferrari 250 Lusso, built in the beginning of the 60s. Nowadays the least expensive will set you about $2.5 million back. This Bugatti is not worth any less as the previous Ferrari. Being a car which is fully hand-built before the Second World War, and being the exclusive brand it was, and still is, I will not be surprised it brings double the money. The folding chair under the car not included. This looks like a Ford Mustang, but there is something now fully right. There you have it. It is a Shelby GT. Aston Martin Vantage. A very exclusive, hand-built, English sports car in the days. Nowadays they produce a lot more cars. The Aston Martin DB3. Very rare, even more so than the Vantage. Only 10 cars were ever produced. Only the last 5 cars made it to private buyers. Production began in 1951 and by the end of 1952 the model was discontinued. DB stands for the owner of the brand, David Brown. This is an Aston Martin Rapide. Production started in 2010 up to this day. This is the second four-door car Aston Martin made. Its predecessor was called the Aston Martin Legenda. It was discontinued in 1990. A look inside, pure luxury, separate seats in the back as well. Look at that center console which runs all the way back in between the rear seats. Here we have a very rare French car called Facel. This particular model is called the Vega. Facel built cars from 1954 to 1964, so only for 10 years. They were very luxurious with bumpers and grille made out of stainless steel rather than chrome. The interior matches the outside, high-quality leather and wood. This is the model after the first one. It was been in production from 1960 to the end of the production line in 1964. Both cars are equipped with big, powerful, Chrysler V8 engines up to 383 cubic inch. This is the end of this part. Part 2 will be coming soon.